Hello, and welcome to Confessions of a Terrible Leader, where real leaders share the raw truth about the lessons they learned the hard way, so you don't have to. Join our host, Lacey Nelson, founder of Transcend Leadership Collective and former terrible leader. Every leader can become worthy of being followed if they are willing to put in the work. On this podcast, we share the messy stories and behind-the-scenes reality of what the work actually entails. We welcome you to this community of revolutionary leaders who believe honest communication, healthy conflict, and building cultures of acceptance, respect, and trust are not only possible, but non-negotiable for cultivating world-class teams. Hello and welcome back, listeners, to Confessions of a Terrible Leader. I'm your host, Lacey Nelson, and let's not forget, also a former terrible leader. And today I am so pleased to introduce Chad Wooters. Welcome, Chad. We're glad you're here.
Thanks, Lacey.
I'm going to share a little bit about Chad and what he's up to. He's a man of many talents, and he is an entrepreneur who helps entrepreneurs, helps business owners to grow and scale by using and finding and amplifying their authentic voice. Does that sound right to you, Chad?
It does. Yeah.
Did I nail it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the shorter the better. So we can say it. We're going to talk about some uncomfortable leadership stories, but that's where I'd like to spend our time today. So that sounds great.
Okay. Excellent. So Chad, when you got the invitation to be on the podcast, this is, for our listenership, like Chad and I are meeting while you're meeting Chad. Mm-hmm. So we saw some alignment right away with the work that we do and the work that you do. My question for you is, why did you say yes? Why were you like, oh, this is a good podcast for me to come on to?
There is something to be said about the ability to learn. Our ability as humans to grow and adapt is really our biggest strength in the world. And so as leaders especially, if we can't admit that we've done wrong, and if we're not willing to change, then we're probably going to have a short tenure as a leader. That those are weaknesses that are not compatible with leadership. And I'm far from perfect. And every day I make mistakes. And every day I'm learning from those mistakes. And so there's been, as with any learning, the bigger mistakes come in the beginning. And there's been some really big mistakes that I've made as a leader that I'd love to make sure that if you can avoid, that we help others avoid, because that's what it's about. If someone had helped me see before the road ends here in a big wall and I'm going to crash into it, would have saved me a little bit of pain, probably saved the company a little bit of money, and would have ultimately led to a faster development for me. So I just want to share because I wish someone had shared with me.
I love that. Thank you. Okay, here's a fun question. Mistakes typically are, the worst is when they hurt people, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. Those are the worst mistakes. And we, unfortunately, as leaders do make those. I've got my own list. But the mistakes that we also talk about are the ones that cost us money. And I just want to put some scale to when we say they cost us money. Mm-hmm. What does that mean? So for listeners, if you don't mind sharing, and I will divulge mine, but what is the most expensive mistake, like dollars wise, you have made?
Most expensive mistake? Man, I mean, we had this happen somewhat recently where we had an issue with, I don't even know how it happened. And it wasn't even me directly, but as the leader, I'm the one who's managing this business unit. Mm-hmm. And ultimately it was my mistake. And it ended up being something like $25,000 in uncollected revenue from clients that owed us money. And basically we didn't hit the right button. That's the mistake, is we didn't hit the right button. And I wasn't double checking to make sure the right button was being checked. And that, $25,000, $30,000, I'm sure there's been more expensive mistakes, right. Lost sales, things like that. But That's the most immediate, most recent one.
So fun.
Yes, absolutely. Those buttons, the little things matter so much in business. It's bonkers.
Yeah. Yes. Mine was a strategy misstep where I put the cart before the horse, so to speak. And my tendency is to move too quickly. Didn't have anyone to throw the brakes on me as hard as I needed. And I now have those people on my team. And I
ended up, essentially lighting on fire $30,000 minimum. That's not even counting the labor costs related to burning that money. So,
as you're sharing that, this is one, and unfortunately, it's not a decision I made unilaterally because I wish I could take ownership of this mistake because it would be like, cool, we're never going to do that again. So I hope we don't make this mistake again. But our most expensive mistake has actually been employing the wrong person for too long. And that cost is in the six figures.
Yes.
So that one was, I can't talk much about that HR, but it's happened a couple times to us actually. And now I do a lot more. I'm more involved in hiring, thank goodness. So, and we're aware of what those people look like. So we know now, but, and it's so unfortunate because it's a disservice to them too.
Yeah.
They don't want to be here, but they need a job because it's what we live in California. So it's expensive to live here.
Yeah. But then they're miserable and then you're all miserable.
Come to find out, every single person who doesn't work here at the company I work at now has better jobs that they like. Not that they're better, like I wouldn't enjoy the job, but they like their job better. And I think they're making more money because it's in the profession and they've been able to get raises and promotions and things of that nature because it's a better fit for them.
Yes.
And so I don't feel bad about saying this isn't a good fit anymore because it's just been so beneficial for everyone.
Yep. A million percent. Well, okay. That sounds like the beginning of a great segue. I know you came on prepared to share with us one of the outstanding mistakes in your journey that, as you shared at the beginning, you're like, man, let me tell you this so I can spare you some scars, so you can get the learning without the scars. All right, Chad, what is it? What is that big mistake you came to share with us today?
Well, I didn't know it was a mistake until I went on my honeymoon with my wife for 3 weeks. And the day I get back, the CEO of the company says, hey, man, we need to sit down. I've prepared a document for you to review. Please review it, and then we'll meet in a couple hours. I get the document. It's a 4-page, 360-degree review about me, how I work with clients. And 3 of the 4 pages are all about one employee that I manage and how basically she hates my guts. I make her question her value in existence and how she can't stand working for me for another moment. And I'm going to back up and tell the story of how we got here, but it was earth shattering to me as someone whose primary goal in life, and has been for quite some time, is to serve others and empower others. This is just like, I have failed at everything. So backing up, it all really started when this employee was being evaluated to hire. Now, first, this person really probably shouldn't have worked for us. It was something we've discovered down the road. But she was a friend of the CEO's. She had a marketing degree. She was someone who really looked like on paper she fit. She had the right faith back. It was just a great fit for all of us, we thought. She came in, and apparently the first thing I did wrong was, for a marketing person, she did not have what I would call a marketing resume. It was a very plain Jane 1995 resume, Word document. I was like, you know what? I'm a marketing professional. Let's have some fun. So I took a resume, went to Canva, and made what I would consider a bomb marketing resume. And so she came in, and I opened up the folder with the resume. I said, you have a really great resume. And I showed her my resume. And I thought it was fun because that's how she interacts with her friend, the CEO. A lot of playful banter. And that was the first lesson I learned, is that you can't assume the relationship that you have with the person who's coming in from context that you have. That was it. That put us on the wrong foot immediately. And I didn't know that. I thought it was all fun and games. And I didn't take the time to build that rapport myself.
You tried to just springboard off of an existing relationship as though you could borrow that relational capital.
Right.
And you can't borrow relational capital, as you learned.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that currency's got to be won and worn. So relationship currency was something I didn't learn about for a couple years after that. So moving forward, the second part was really, frankly, a lack of self-awareness. That's one of the most important pieces of any leader, is you got to be self-aware. The funny part is, if you're not self-aware, you can't become self-aware on your own.
Right.
It's kind of a paradox there. The problem is the solution, and the solution is the problem. And so you got to go get some friends who can help train you and retrain your brain on how to do that. And that's what ended up happening. But I'm a high achiever. I like to do things a little differently. I like to get things done. I actually rather enjoy working 10 hours a day, 12 hours a day, because I love work. And because of that, especially this time in my career, 5-6 years ago now, I kind of mowed over other people. It was hey, go do this thing. Here's how you do it. Boom, boom, boom. And I would do this, everything, imagine every possible wrong way to do something. That was the handbook I was working out of. So I'd walk into their office. I'd say, drop what you're doing, go do this. I would not give them adequate instructions. I would not give them sentences that had one meaning. There was no documented systems or video or how to. It was all wrong. And because I was working on important things, and that's not debatable, my approach in doing that was all wrong. I'd come in and say, this is important. It's more important than what you're doing. And I would do that so frequently that the other person, the team member I was managing, it ultimately just made her feel like everything she does isn't important. And what was most disheartening to me was it made her feel like I think I'm more important than her, that I'm the smartest person in the room.
Oh my gosh.
And I'm far from that. I actually am not that smart. I'm only smart because my number one gift is learning. I know how to go learn anything. I'm not that smart. I just know how to go figure out how to look smart. And so these folks, in doing this over the course of about a year, the gap kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger.
Mm-hmm.
And so the last piece of this story, I guess we can go in two pieces. So I get back from the honeymoon. This has been building up and building up and building up. And this person hates my guts while putting on a face that I had no idea. I was completely
Did not know.
Yeah. It's funny. This is not scripted. I always thought, because I tried to give opportunities for her to push back, to give me feedback, to hold me accountable, I thought that we were good on that end.
Right.
And I learned, one of the lessons I learned is that it is unreasonable. It's unrealistic, really, to expect someone under your management to hold you accountable. They're never going to do it. It isn't possible. And if it is, it means that they're someone who wants to have your job. It means that there's someone who's going to go do something else someday. And so, in my opinion, that's an opinion, and opinions are like, belly buttons. Everyone's got one, right? So it doesn't really matter. But that's my thought. The other two pieces were, I get back from this honeymoon and I'm devastated because I feel like I failed as a leader. And I have, let's be real, like it's not a feeling, it's a fact. I failed as a leader.
Mm-hmm.
So I look at the CEO, I say, what are we going to do about this? And, does she still work here? That was one of the questions I had. And he said, yes, she works here. We're going to talk about it. No, she's not leaving your management. We're going to figure out what's going on. And he's like, what I know about you is not what she's sharing with me. But these are two misaligned identities here. And this is a perspective issue. And so we just need to figure out what's causing it, do better moving forward, and fix this foundational piece. Yeah. And so we did. We met with it literally, I want to say 15 minutes into the conversation over sushi, not in the office. It turned into all's good. I took ownership for my failure. I took ownership for what I did wrong and how I made her feel, because the reality is I can't be responsible for her feelings. I can't be responsible for her perception. But my lack of perception, my lack of awareness, both self-awareness, social awareness, and in social currency aspects, those are my failings, undisputably my failings. And so I took ownership of that. I asked for her forgiveness. I didn't say I'm sorry. I was sorry, but I asked for forgiveness, for her to basically say, it's okay. It will be okay. Not that it was okay. Mm-hmm. You did wrong, and I'm acknowledging that, and now we're going to move forward. And within 15 minutes, we were back and we were friends and everything was good. I shared my heart with her, what I want to do, who I want to be as a leader. And I encouraged her to voice her concerns with me, not to hold me accountable, but to put it in the position of protecting herself.
Right.
If you ever feel that this is a problem, one, I want to encourage you to come to me. If you can't, then you need to go to the CEO. Because unfortunately, at the time, it's me and the CEO, and we're the two management arms. So it was like, but giving her permission to go somewhere to voice that concern.
Right.
She didn't have an outlet for that previously, which is part of the problem. And so we did that. Everything was fixed. And that's the second piece, is that if you find this kind of piece, meeting on it and figuring out if it's something that can be overcome or if it needs to be something that is done. In this instance, if she was not able to remedy that relationship, then we need to help her find a better place to be. Unfortunately, there wasn't another manager who could take her over with her skill set, because she was in one of the departments I managed solely at the time. And so looking at that, we were willing to do whatever, and we weren't going to fire her by any means. We were going to say, let's go help you find a better place to be. Now, the funny part is she ended up quitting. She said, she told us, I'm going to stay. She promised the CEO, her friend, I'm going to stay for X amount of time. I'm going to finish out the year. And it was like August. And like 6 weeks later, she resigned because she had a job offer from somewhere else. So it worked out okay. It was fine. But just looking at that, it was hugely educational for me, as the word I like to use on that end. So there's my story. Yeah. It's kind of fresh. 5 years compared to the other stories, which are a little bit longer, but
yes. Yes. Man, there's so many valuable pieces in there. I have so many questions. My first one is, well, my first thing is thank you for being honest and for sharing that and for sharing your shortcoming and your just absolute obliviousness to the impact that you were having. And what we find working with, hundreds of leaders every year is that I have yet to meet one, maybe they exist, but I have yet to meet anyone in a position of leadership that wakes up and goes, you know what? I want to make my people miserable today. I want to devalue them. I want them to feel like hot garbage. Most people have the very best of intentions, and it gets completely lost in their inability to shift the way that they are connecting and communicating to meet the need of the person that's actually in front of them. Yes. And it sounds like that was a lot of what was happening with you. And my question is, how has your leadership style changed? How has that impacted in very tangible ways the way that you work today with people that report to you?
Yeah, it's done two things for me. One is I take a lot more time, and this is partly active, meaning it's active in the moment with the person, and it's partly active individually in independent time. And I take time to really pursue understanding their value system. So the easiest way to explain that is like love languages. It's kind of a hot word a buzzword in today's deal. You mentioned social currency. Social currency is the full science behind the love languages. And beyond the 5 love languages, there's something like 42 or some number like that of ways that folks feel valued in your interactions with them. And so 1, learning about those is helpful. But 2, looking, kind of dissecting the interactions of the day with the team members and saying, cool, I did this thing and this is how they reacted. That's really helpful. The second piece is asking them. Most folks are not self-aware enough to give you an accurate answer, but they can at least give you a great starting point. And if you can show them care and management and relationship in the way that they think they need it, that's going to put you in the right step. Mm-hmm. The other piece I've started doing is I give a lot more disclaimers about how messed up I am, and not like, oh yeah, I'm a terrible person, like not that far, but like, hey, I make mistakes too. It's okay. I want you to know that you're here because you have a valuable job, and if you ever feel like that's not being communicated and you're confused about the value your job brings, let's meet, because I'm going to actually show you the exact value that your job has. It's not just clicking mouses or processing these things. This is a greater contribution. And so, yeah, it's that kind of piece. It's looking at the team members, really understanding what drives them. It's helping build value. And the third thing is actually asking a lot more questions. Mm-hmm. People can't escape the question if you ask it. They'll avoid some of the questions you ask, but if you start to ask questions, you're going to help them. For the angry person, you're going to help them really kind of slow down and separate from that emotion. For the person who seems just melancholy, you're going to actually be able to get past that to see what's going on. I actually made a team member cry 2 weeks ago, I think, because I said, how's it going? That's it. And I didn't do anything wrong, actually. Someone else had. And I was able to be there for this team member because I asked the question. Yeah. That can be tremendously valuable. So know the questions you need to ask and get better at asking questions.
Yes. Yes. Do you do regular one-to-one check-ins with your direct reports?
I do. I don't know that I did at the time. This was a long time ago. I do now. We do. So 1, we have an open door policy for the most part. They can call me, reach me, text me, walk into my office occasionally. Although I should probably cater that back a little bit. But they can reach me anytime. They can ask any question that they have. And if they need to meet, I just say, yep, let's put something in the calendar. Schedule it. Besides that, we have scheduled bi-weekly check-ins, and these bi-weekly check-ins are short. They're 30 minutes, but they allow us to connect, collaborate, get status updates, things of that nature, and they allow them to be non-emotional. The team member will prepare information for that time, and I can share with them areas of growth that are actually in that meeting that I've observed over the last 2 weeks.
Yeah. So then their performance evaluations aren't a surprise.
Exactly.
Which they never should be.
Yes.
What? Can you tell me? Okay, you said something interesting a while back, and you talked about accountability and how you can't expect a person to hold you accountable, or maybe that it's not even appropriate. So in your mind, I want the delineation between what is the difference between accountability and feedback when it comes to people that not you providing it to them, but them providing it to you.
Yeah.
What is the delineation there?
So just to restate what I said earlier, it's unreasonable to expect someone who's under your management to hold you accountable. That's the phrase we're talking about.
Right.
That's something I've come to feel strongly about because of some own experiences in my own life. And the difference is that to have an accountability partner is to put someone on your same level. You're saying, hey, there's a problem here, or are you hitting your goals? Are you doing these pieces? And in effect, accountability is often, and I wouldn't say this is necessarily wrong, but accountability is often questioning the outputs of the person who's being held accountable. I built a little course on how to use AI as a tutor, for example. And a friend of mine who I deeply respect, he said, hey man, you've been talking about this for a long time. When are you going to get it done? Now, if a team member came to me, who was my downline, so to speak, that could be perceived and should be perceived as borderline disrespectful in the tone, tenor of the conversation. And so that fine line of accountability and feedback is that accountability is when you're being held to a standard, and feedback is an open dialogue. And not that accountability can't be an open dialogue, but it is designed to be, we're measuring goals. We have an end output or desired output in mind, and we're comparing our activity and our results to our desired activity and our desired results. From there, feedback is more dialogue. It's more, this is what I think. This is what I feel. I've observed these things. I don't know if it matters or not, but this is here. And it allows, if you can set this up with your team, from what I've experienced, it allows your team to come to you open armed, open-minded, and share their concerns, and even phrase them in a way that's not a personal attack. Because they're never, I can't say never, most folks will not come to you as a manager and attack your work ethic and attack your results and attack your outcomes. They're just not comfortable with it. And so feedback allows them to do that without attaching it to the desired outcome or the desired result. So it's the accountability without the punch.
So when someone, so here's what I see happening with a lot of leaders. They are in a position where their work and their output and them meeting their own deadlines that they've set, if they don't do that, they're bottlenecking things for the rest of their team.
Yes.
Our output gets to, there are a lot of things that hinge on me doing what I said I was going to do when I said I was going to do it.
Yep.
So how, in your framework, in your understanding, if I'm working for you and I'm on your team and you are my boss and I'm like, Chad, I'm so frustrated right now because I cannot get my work done because I'm not getting what I need from you in a timely manner.
That's awesome.
And that is how I would probably approach my supervisor.
Yeah.
And say, I need to understand, help me understand if this is a priority for you or not. I'm really unclear right now about what I'm supposed to be doing because you're not doing what I thought what you communicated was going to happen in the time frame it was going to happen. So I don't know what the right next step is to take here.
Right.
Like, how would you perceive and receive that?
I would receive that well, and I would hope any leader would receive that well for multiple reasons. Because the fact that a team member is coming to you with that is, that person is going to do a lot of great things in their life. That takes a lot of communication confidence. And so that would be, in my opinion, well received. Yeah. I've done that to a handful of leaders in my time. Yeah. I will say one of the biggest lessons I've learned in that is the question is, am I really required in this? That singular question has freed me and our leadership team up from so many different pieces. Do I consistently add value to the end output that's here? Or are these preferences that I think are important for my brand?
Right.
Which is more usually what the situation is. And if you're holding up a project, we've transitioned the last 5 or 6 years with this exact thing. And I basically have told the team, I want you to ask for forgiveness, not permission. If I can't get to this piece before it goes out, well, then that's my fault. And what we've done is we built a system for the most part, except for critical things. You have until this date to provide feedback, and this is going live. Yep. And that happened because of the conversation you just mentioned. That's exactly what I said. I said, hey, I've got to do email marketing. I've got to do these pieces. And you want your voice to be here. Your voice isn't needed. This is good marketing. I'm the marketing guy. This is good marketing content. So if you want your voice, how do I make sure that we're hitting our goals? Because you're upset with marketing because it's not hitting your goals, but we haven't sent an email in a month because it requires approval. So help me navigate this. And I went through it again. I went through that problem solving a little bit different. that's what the team member, I would hope you'd react well to.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it's common for a lot of leaders to be violent communicators. I don't know if you've ever read Nonviolent Communication. That can really harm that dynamic.
Right.
And
right.
So, yeah.
So what I'm hearing is I'm just trying to get in alignment.
Yeah.
Because I think we had different definitions of accountability and feedback from how I understood it.
Okay.
So accountability isn't, you're not opposed to accountability as a leader.
No.
You want your people that report to you to hold you accountable to good leadership.
Yes.
And to clear communication.
Yes.
And to consistency. But you want them to communicate it in a way that isn't laced with passive aggressiveness or combativeness or you said you were going to do this. Now you didn't do it. What do you think I'm supposed to do now? Get it together. Mm-hmm. That's what is not okay.
I actually don't mind that.
Okay.
I love the challenger. I'm an antagonist at heart, if I'm being honest. So usually when that happens, I go into like, this is going to be a lot of fun.
Okay.
And so usually I got to be really good at questions because now I've got to move their emotional state. So that kind of stuff is fun for me. If I could have my dream come true would be that my team members would hold me accountable to the actual output that I'm expected to have. I would love that. Okay. I think it's unreasonable to ask that. The reason is because I thrive on accountability. I love accountability.
Okay.
Some of the best growth I've ever accomplished in my life is from accountability. But team members will not do that because you're the one who ultimately controls their pay. You control their job satisfaction. You control their tasks. And with one of our team members, we have such a great trust dynamic that she is able to come to me and share some of this feedback like that. But the only reason she's able to do that is because we position it as feedback and not accountability.
Got it. I get what you're saying now. Thank you for clarifying that for me.
Yeah.
I totally get it. I 100% agree that most people are not going to. And you do have to lay a lot of groundwork for them to feel that is the whole foundation of Heart First Leadership, right? Is that you get to that space.
Yes.
And one of the things that we encourage every leadership team, executive leadership team that's sitting around a table, if they don't have that level of communication, if you can't talk to your CEO like that in that really direct way and have it not cross into knocking people out of the regulated state where they can really understand it's me and you versus the problem, not me versus you and you're the problem.
Yes.
You have to have a whole team that can stay in a state where they can talk about that in that way and that directly. If you don't have that at the executive level, you have no hope of it becoming the norm in your team.
Right.
Because it has to absolutely start at the top. And so that is where you should be holding each other accountable peer to peer, is at that executive team level.
Yes. And I really wish I could ask my team members who I manage to hold me accountable, but if you look at the calling of a leader and with your stuff, I mean, I love how you're focused on that because that's something that's changed with us recently is I've always been a little scared to hold our leaders accountable because they don't receive my accountability well. And so I'm always doing it gently and as feedback, and I'm leaving that stuff in. And I think as a call of leader, if we look at that question, that's why I said it's unrealistic, it's unreasonable for most. Now, if it's your core leadership team, well, then you can help them, Lacey, with your stuff,
right.
Build out that good communication structure. But in the non-executive team, when they don't have this executive training or this executive support, they haven't done the personal development courses, they're not listening to this podcast.
Right.
They're not going to likely have the professional or personal development to be able to do what we want them to do.
Right.
And that's the unrealistic part of it is that no one's going to, if your boss came up to you at your first job and said, hey man, I want you to call me out on my stuff. You're going to be like, yeah, I value my job more than telling you that you need to do better at yours. Like, thank you. And that's what we're talking about.
Or you're me and then you did do it and then you ended up not fitting there real quick.
Exactly. And how many stories are there that are like that are out there?
Right.
Until there's an ownership mentality, which I'm sure is part of your coaching.
Yes, it is.
Until there's an ownership mentality that we are working together and that we're solving this problem, then that's it. If you can train your team to have the same approach, by the way, my team member will hold me accountable, but she does it in a wonderful way. She comes to me and says, hey, we've got a bit of a problem. I'd like to get your thoughts on fixing it.
Yeah.
And then she cleverly weaves in, you're the problem. It's Taylor Swift. Hi, it's me.
Yeah, bruh. Yeah. It's you, dude.
Right.
Yes. I love it. Oh my gosh. What a great conversation. If people want to learn more about you, or they're at that beginning phase where they're, we tell organizations like, hey, if you haven't figured out yet how to really make money, you're not ready to work with us. You have other things you need to be investing in to get to the point where you can give the energy and the attention where it needs to go. Not that foundational leadership isn't important. It absolutely is. But if organizations are at that baby startup phase, and figuring it out, where do they find you, Chad? How do you help them? Where do they find you? Tell us all about how they can get a hold of you and how you can help them.
Yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn. I'm pretty bad at social media. That's not LinkedIn, but I'm around. But you can also go to my website, chadmwooters.com. Chad Wooters is an artist, I believe, who I can't reach for the life of me. If you guys know Chad Wooters, I will redesign his website for free to bring honor to our name. But Chad, M is in Mike, Wooters.com. You can access my blog, and I actually just put out a blog on transformational leadership as a leadership model. Not that it's the only one or the best one, but it's a one that's out there.
Yep.
And if you're someone who's either an entrepreneur who's looking to start a business, or ideally someone who's got a business that's generating some revenue and a website already, and you want to find scale and your authentic voice and do more, reach the right folks, that's who I like to work with. So you can chadmwooters.com. My brand is Kairos. Kairos Talks is the website, kairostalks.com. And I'd love to connect and just learn more about your business and what's going on there.
Excellent. Well, we will drop all of your links in the show notes so people can scroll down and find you. And thank you for making time to be on today. It was wonderful.
Lacey, it was fun. I haven't had to tell that story in a very long time. And it was so great to revisit those lessons and honestly just see how much I've grown.
Mm-hmm.
Not that I'm done growing. There's a lot of things I've done wrong, probably this week. But if I could give one more tip.
Please do.
Something I've started doing this year that has just expedited this self-awareness is I do a monthly audit of myself.
Talk about that.
Basically, I think it's 7 questions that are not small questions. They're pretty giant questions. And I take an hour at the end of the month and I ask these questions and I evaluate my own performance. I hold myself accountable. It's questions like, where were things that you wish you had done better this month?
Mm-hmm.
Where were things that you succeeded? What was something you learned? What was something that you realized you need to learn? And we go through these questions. I say we, me, myself, and I, all 3 of us, we go through these questions and I just take an honest, hard look at them and I separate from the day-to-day. And I say, as a person, as a leader, as an entrepreneur, as someone who wants to impact the world, what am I doing? Am I doing the right things? And am I having the right impact? And the clarity, the permission to be hard on myself, the permission to forgive myself, and the permission to get better, those 3 pieces have just been transformational for me this year.
I think people need to get a hold of you and ask you for those questions.
All right.
If they find you, will you share your questions?
100%. Yeah, I can't. I should. Well, we're halfway through the month. That's why I'm having a hard time remembering what they are. So, yeah, I'm happy to send over my template that I use. And I would say my questions may not be the right questions for you, but they'll at least be a starting point.
That would be awesome.
Find questions that matter for you.
If you share that with us, we'll link it in the show notes. Perfect. And people can grab that and definitely find you. And if they resonate with it, they're in those beginning phases of building a business. Sounds like you're a great person to connect with.
Thanks, Lacey. This is so much fun today. Thank you for having me on.
Thank you so much. It was wonderful. And listeners, until next time, go manage like a leader.
Thanks for being part of this community of revolutionary leaders who believe honest communication, healthy conflict, and building cultures of acceptance, respect, and trust are not only possible, but non-negotiable for cultivating world-class teams. If one-to-one coaching, engaging workshops, or strategic planning that is actually useful are anything that interests you, make sure to head over to transcendleadershipcollective.com to check out our free resources. Confessions of a Terrible Leader is hosted by Lacey Nelson and produced by Mary Scott. Music is by Leif Olson and Mary Scott from the band The Number of Months. Thank you so much for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe and leave us a review. And until next time, go manage like a leader.